Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. When you want to form your second soul core, you'll inevitably infringe upon your first soul core. Instead of there being one center, there will be two centers. Your first soul core will generate intense resistance. This is because you are disrupting the circulation of your first soul core by forming your second soul core. That's why it becomes particularly difficult, and you'll face a lot of interference. Huo Yuhao nodded. Elder Xian's description fit the situation he was facing right now exactly. Elder Xian continued, "It seems like you understand what I'm saying. Don't tell me that you've already begun trying to form your second soul core." Huo Yuhao laughed bitterly and replied, "I've been on it for some time, but I've not managed to make much progress. Otherwise, why would Wutong a title Doluo, but not me? We've been cultivating together, and the standard of our soul power roughly the same. This second soul core has been troubling me for a long time." As he looked at Tang Wutong before looking at Huo Yuhao, Elder Xian couldn't help but sigh. Impressive. Yuhao, you must remember never to rush trying to form your second soul core. If you are overly zealous, you might run amok. When that happens, even an immortal can't save you. All right. Huo Yuhao was petrified. When Elder Xian mentioned the words run amok, there was an obvious terrified look in his eyes. If even someone like him could become terrified, it showed how frightening running amok was. Elder Xian laughed bitterly. "It almost happened to me once. I was much younger then, and therefore much more impulsive. If not for the fact that Elder Mu was by my side and helped me with the trouble, you guys wouldn't be able to see me. Even so, I lay in bed for a good 3 years before I recovered my vital energy. For the next 10 years, I didn't dare to try forming my second soul core." Huo Yuhao was stunned. "So frightening." Elder Xian nodded seriously and said, "Yes, it's very terrifying. Don't forget that the successful formation of your first soul core means that your soul core is basically a soul power grenade that has been greatly compressed. When it's stable, it is a source of soul power. But if it isn't stable, its explosiveness is demonstrated. Once it blows apart, not even a streak of your spirit will be left behind. Don't you think it's terrifying? When I almost ran amok, there was a slight crack on the surface of my soul core before Elder Mu forcefully covered it. That's why the worst didn't happen. Otherwise, I would have been finished. All right, since you are already at this stage, you should be able to sense it deeply. I'll continue talking and you'll continue to listen to me intently. It'll be useful for your future breakthrough." "Yes." Huo Yuhao acknowledged respectfully. Elder Xian continued, saying, "There are two known methods of forming your second soul core. Most soul masters choose the first method, resonance, which I mentioned earlier. To prevent your second soul core from disrupting your first soul core, you must first listen to your first soul core and respect its existence. During the formation of your second soul core, you must first find the rhythm and frequency of the circulation of your first soul core. When you attempt to form your second soul core, you must first resonate with your first soul core. This will minimize any disruption. Your second soul core must circulate and compress to the standard of your first soul core, before picking up speed and creating two centers instead of one. What's needed is soul power compression and revolution. However, the new core will be along the straight line of the diameter of the two circles combined. Since it's bigger, it can consolidate and compress more soul power. This is the reason why ultimate Doluo are so strong. So that's why. If not for Elder Xian's explanation, Huo Yuhao would have taken another 10 years to understand this concept. He might not have even learned the technique, and faced the possibility of running amok. Elder Xian said, "Although it's difficult to form your second soul core through resonance, you can succeed if you keep trying and your soul power and control are strong enough. Just like Elder Mu, the Darkness Holy Dragon, the Death God Doluo and myself, you should be walking this path." Huo Yuhao was curious as he asked, "Elder Xian, how do you know that Yi Shishui and Long Xiaoyao also took this path?" Elder Xian smiled and said, "If they didn't, the result would be completely different. Are you talking about the second method? Huo Yuhao asked. Elder Xian nodded and said, yes. Using resonance to form your second soul core is comparatively safer. This is because your first soul core is still the main one. The formation of your second soul core will follow the frequency of revolution of your first soul core, and thus not many problems will occur between your first and second soul cores. However, if you use another method to form your second soul core, the danger is much greater. Of course, the benefit is as great as the danger. The other method is yin-yang complement. Yin-yang complement. Just like resonance, this was Huo Yuhao's first time coming across such a cultivation term. Elder Xian nodded. It's yin-yang complement. What this means is that the second soul core will follow a different path from the first soul core during its formation. It'll be like forming a new soul core from scratch. The second soul core will have nothing to do with the first soul core. It'll also be fully disrupted by the first soul core. If your soul power revolves towards the left when you first form your first soul core, then your second soul core has to revolve towards the right. Everything must be completely different from the first soul core. Huo Yuhao was astonished. How is that possible? Didn't you say that the first soul core becomes the center of all my soul power after it forms? If my second soul core revolves in the opposite direction from my first soul core, wouldn't it become a target and cause me to run amok? Elder Xian shook his head and said, no, you're right. Your second soul core must revolve in the opposite direction as your first soul core within the sphere of influence of your first soul core. While the resistance is very great, you can achieve independence of your second soul core as long as it can complete a revolution. Let me now tell you how you can easily run amok given certain conditions. It happens the most easily when there's chaos during the process of forming your soul core, rather than when your soul core revolves. You'll face a major problem when any sort of chaos leads to disruption in the entire process. As a result, you should only use the yin-yang complement if you are strong enough and persistent enough. You must maintain the counter-revolution with all your might, and slowly allow your second soul core to form its own world within the control of your first soul core. This will make it truly independent, and immunize itself from the disruption of the first soul core. Then, it can improve and strengthen to reach the same standard as your first soul core. Once the strengths of your two soul cores are similar, there will be one major conflict. During this conflict, an explosive-like fusion will occur. If it succeeds, your second soul core will be formed. From there, an extremely strong twin soul core balanced by yin and yang will be formed. If you fail, you die. Huo Yuhao was stunned. Even though this was just Elder Xian's description, he could already sense how difficult it was to achieve such a balance. Surely there isn't anyone who's chosen this method, right? It's too dangerous. Furthermore, what will it be like even if you succeed, given that your two soul cores are revolving in opposite directions? Wouldn't there always be a conflict within your body? Elder Xian smiled and shook his head. There are still those who try. Although I've never heard of any human soul master succeeding as of yet, the twin soul core that's formed is the strongest if success is attained. Let me ask you, how should a whirlpool move such that it's at its fastest speed? Huo Yuhao was puzzled as he asked, isn't it just by revolving? Elder Xian replied, the correct answer is a combination of push and pull. Think about it. If two whirlpools move in two opposite directions, what will happen between these two whirlpools? Any soul power that's stuck between the two whirlpools will immediately form another whirlpool due to the opposing forces, but this new whirlpool will be forced away. After listening to Elder Xian's words, Huo Yuhao only heard a loud boom in his head. A very important doubt that he had all this while was finally answered. He said almost immediately, Elder Xian, did Di Qian use the yin-yang complement? Elder Xian was stunned. You actually guessed it. That's right. He did use that method. That's why he's so strong. The reason why he succeeded was because he had been accumulating his strength for a long time. Furthermore, he's physically strong. As for how he did it, I'm not sure. However, I think he's the only one who has succeeded among all the known individuals and soul beasts. As a result, it's without a doubt that he's the strongest among all ultimate Doluo. If he fights with all his strength, I don't think Long Xiaoyao and Yi Shishui would be his match even if they combined forces. Di Qian had always been Huo Yuhao's goal. The more he understood this beast god, the more he felt how terrifying he was. He had actually used the yin-yang complement to form his twin soul core. As he thought of how Di Qian circulated his soul power, it all made sense to him. Yes, his soul power appears as small whirlpools. That must be the effect of a balance of yin and yang. Each of those small whirlpools contains immense soul power. Compared to ordinary and ultimate Doluo, the amount of soul power he can store is much greater. No wonder even his projection can scare off Yi Shishui. He's indeed the beast god. Elder Xian said, "You shouldn't be thinking about the yin-yang complement. It's too dangerous. While your body is strong, you can't compare yourself to the beast god. After all, humans and soul beasts are biologically different. That's why you shouldn't go and take the risk. Just follow the principle of resonance to cultivate. You possess ultimate ice and twin martial souls. As long as your second soul core forms successfully and you work towards your third soul core to become an ultimate Doluo, it's not impossible for you to reach Di Qian's abilities." Huo Yuhao laughed bitterly in his heart. "If it's already so difficult to form my second soul core, what about my third soul core? I'm afraid no one in the history of Shrek Academy has cultivated a third soul core." Elder Xian then provided more advice to Huo Yuhao. He revealed everything that he had experienced to Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong. "All right, you just need to remember what I said. Don't attempt a breakthrough anytime soon. It's very dangerous. I must be around to protect you when you try. This is so that the risk you are facing is at its lowest." "All right." Huo Yuhao acknowledged his words. Elder Xian said, "The mission will take place in 10 days. Meet the rest of the people who are going over the following days. You are very familiar with the meeting place, which is the Mingdo mountain range. Both of you can proceed there first and rendezvous at the White Tiger Duke's camp. When everyone is there, you'll set off. Remember what I said. Both of you are there to help only. Aren't you very good at concealment? Don't reveal all your abilities. Don't become a target. That applies for both you and Wutong. Elder Xian, don't worry. To protect Wutong, I won't take the risk." Huo Yuhao assured Elder Xian once again. Huo Yuhao wasn't too worried about this mission. In fact, he was a little skeptical of such a mission. Was it so easy to assassinate the leader of an empire? Furthermore, whether they would like to admit it or not, the combined power of the Sun Moon Empire was the greatest in all the empires of the Doluo continent. He was very familiar with the defensive strength of their soul tools. Assassinating Shu Qianran would be extremely difficult. However, since Elder Xian let him go, he still had to make this trip. Huo Yuhao wasn't against it. However, he didn't hold any hope of achieving any results on this mission. Even though he wasn't purely there for a show, he made up his mind to regard safety as the main priority. He wasn't going to take any unnecessary risks. With their brand new Haodong power, Tang Wutong and his fighting strength was much greater than before. Along with the fact that his survival ability on a battlefield was very great, and he had a wealth of experience, he was very confident of preserving his own life. After returning to the Tang sect, Huo Yuhao immediately pulled Tang Wutong back to his room to meditate. He could only focus during his meditation. He needed to fully understand what Elder Xian was describing earlier, and turn his experience into comprehension. Over the next few days, Huo Yuhao did some preparatory work. It was only on the 9th day that he and Tang Wutong bade goodbye to the rest of the Tang sect. They quietly left Shrek City and proceeded towards the Star Luo Empire's borders. After entering the borders of the Star Luo Empire, Huo Yuhao was astonished to find out that there were aerial surveillance soul tools in the Star Luo Empire. Although there weren't many of them, it was better to have some than not to have any at all. Evidently, Shrek Academy wasn't the only one that had intensified their research in this area. After suffering during the war, the three empires of the original Doluo continent also strengthened their research in this area. It wasn't possible to catch up to the Sun Moon Empire, but it was better than nothing. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong held hands as they flew through the sky. Their soul power circulated in their bodies, and they both had a flying-type soul tool on their backs. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong's flying-type soul tools were made by Huo Yuhao personally. They were Class 9 soul tools. Compared to other Class 9 soul engineers, Huo Yuhao's greatest advantage was the speed with which he produced Class 9 soul tools. He didn't design these two flying-type soul tools. Rather, Xianziwen was the one who designed them. He only produced them, which took 5 months in total. Although they weren't the best Class 9 soul tools, they were definitely exquisite work. They were dim blue. Such a color helped the soul tools blend into the sky. At such a level, remaining hidden was more important than the superficial design of the soul tool. As they circulated their soul power, the speed of their flying-type soul tools was immediately increased to the speed of sound. Of course, the length of time that they could maintain such a speed, as well as how quick they were depleted, was directly related to the volume of their soul power. With Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong's current cultivation, they could only maintain such a sonic speed for about 15 minutes. However, if they used their Haodong power, that time would be increased to an hour. An hour was sufficient for them to cross half the empire. This was why Huo Yuhao was very confident that they could protect themselves. Class 9 soul tools would definitely not just have one ability. These two flying-type soul tools were equipped with soul thrusters. If these thrusters were boosted, they would be able to travel up to 3 times the speed of sound. Even that could only be maintained for a moment. There were many occasions that unexpected effects could be achieved. Of course, not just anyone could use such an ability. This was because the burden on one's body, as a result of using this ability, was very great. Any soul master with less than 7 rings would blow apart due to the immense pressure when traveling at such a great speed. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were both talented. Tang Wutong was already a title Doluo, while Huo Yuhao was at rank 89. Both of them could use such an ability. Xianziwen called these two flying-type soul tools supersonic wings. Xianziwen was even proud enough to claim that these two flying-type soul tools were capable of being ranked among the top 10 flying-type soul tools on the continent. This was because Class 9 soul engineers would rarely focus their energy on producing such soul tools. To produce a Class 9 soul tool, a Class 9 soul engineer must be willing to sacrifice a lot of energy. At the same time, he must possess sufficient resources too. Originally, Shrek Academy and the Tang sect didn't have a lot of rare metals. However, as time passed, the development and prosperity of Shrek City attracted a lot of businessmen. This provided Shrek City and the Tang sect with a lot of new resources. The Tang sect's soul tools were also being sold. Soul tools were very profitable. By trading soul tools for rare metals, the Tang sect managed to gather sufficient resources. While the Sun Moon Empire had many Class 9 soul engineers, the demand for resources was also very high. However, only Xianziwen and Huo Yuhao required resources in Shrek City. This was why all the top-grade materials were all with them and enough to support their production demands. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong maintained 1/4 the speed of sound as they flew. This was already very quick, and it was also a speed that ensured that they would remain in their best condition. With the circulation of their Haodong power, they could maintain a balance between the depletion and restoration of their abilities. Huo Yuhao said, "Wutong." "What?" Tang Wutong glanced at him. Huo Yuhao squinted and said, "What would you think if I chose the yin-yang complement to cultivate my second soul core?" Tang Wutong was astonished and replied, "Yuhao, don't take the risk. Didn't Elder Xian mention that it's very dangerous?" Huo Yuhao replied, "It is, but the benefits are great too. If I succeed, I believe I can become as strong as a transcendent Doluo when I become a title Doluo. I still remember how Di Tian's strength descended upon me when I faced Yi Shishui at the Mingdo mountain range. I clearly felt that his soul power appeared in the form of soul cores. It was extremely strong. Every streak of his soul power was forcefully compressed. He could even force the death god Doluo away, although my body was very weak back then. In the future, I will need to fight the beast god. If my second soul core is weaker than his, it'll be very difficult for me to challenge him in the future. Tang Wutong creased her brows. However, it's too dangerous. Furthermore, even if you use resonance to cultivate your second soul core, you can still cultivate a third soul core in the future. When that happens, you can still challenge the beast god with 3 soul cores. In addition, why do you need to challenge the beast god? Huo Yuhao sighed and replied, I have my own difficulties. Di Qian gave me a piece of his reverse scale. He says that it protects me, but it's actually spying on me. Once my future cultivation reaches a certain standard, or once I develop some kind of special understanding, it'll interfere with me. To remove this reverse scale, I need to defeat Di Qian. Otherwise, I won't be able to reach the peak in the future. As he spoke, he opened the buttons at the front of his shirt and revealed the piece of reverse scale to Tang Wutong. When Tang Wutong saw he pitch-black reverse scale, an angry look flashed across her eyes. Di Qian, HMPH. Huo Yuhao grabbed her hand and said, This is why I need to choose the best method at every stage of my cultivation. It's only then that I can challenge him. After all, Di Qian has dominated the continent for years. There's a reason why he's the strongest. Tang Wutong turned her head and looked at Huo Yuhao. She asked seriously, if you use the yin-yang complement, how confident are you? Also, have you ever thought of the fact that you'll have to cultivate a third soul core? Otherwise, you won't become a titled Doluo. If you use resonance instead, you'll use the same method when it comes to your third soul core. It's just more difficult compared to your second soul core. However, how are you going to do it if you use the yin-yang complement? At least, I don't have a clue. Di Qian has been famous for hundreds of thousands of years, but he only has 2 soul cores. Doesn't he want a third soul core? He must not have succeeded so far. This shows how difficult it is to cultivate a third soul core, after using the yin-yang complement to cultivate a second soul core. Yes. After listening to Tang Wutong's words, Huo Yuhao nodded. He definitely knew that her words were very logical. However, he was indignant. Wutong, whichever method you use, a third soul core has always been a myth. When I chose to form my first soul core, I did it to increase the speed of my cultivation. I'm not sure if I can continue to create miracles when it comes to my third soul core. However, I believe that I can challenge the beast god even if I don't become an ultimate Doluo if I use the yin-yang complement to cultivate my second soul core. Don't forget that I'm also a class 9 soul engineer. When I become a transcendent Doluo in the future, I can try to become a class 10 soul engineer. That's why I really want to try. Tang Wutong nodded and said, How confident are you then? Or rather, what can you rely on? If it's too dangerous, I won't let you try at all. Huo Yuhao replied, Honestly speaking, I'm a little confident. I've been cultivating every day. You should be able to sense how strong my body is. After hearing his words, Tang Wutong turned slightly red. Who's sensing your body? Huo Yuhao also chuckled, See, thinking isn't healthy. I'm talking about my physical strength. I've taken a lot of treasures. I've also been nourished by the life gold. My life energy is much stronger than most ordinary soul masters. I'm confident in this aspect. While almost all the manifold mysterious ice essence in my body has been absorbed, there's still some left in my spirit. Once I try for my second soul core, this strength can be tapped into. Forming a soul core requires a lot of energy. It should be able to satisfy this requirement. Also, my spiritual power is strong enough. We've been tirelessly cultivating over the past 2 years. I'm also astonished by the improvements to my spiritual power. I'm not sure about the exact level of my spiritual power now, but I feel that I'm at the tier of a transcendent Doluo. This will help me with the control of my soul power, which far exceeds that of ordinary people. I really want to give it a go. Even if it's dangerous, I'll invite Elder Xian to protect me. I'm sure I can deal with any danger in time. Seeing that he was so persistent, Tang Wutong nodded after pondering for a moment. She replied, "All right then. You can give it a go. However, you must not force the issue." Huo Yuhao was delighted. In fact, if he couldn't force it, he wouldn't want to hide anything from Tang Wutong. Even if there was a possibility that they would be separated, he would rather give up on his cultivation. Tang Wutong revealed a slight smile on her face. "In that case, I'll choose the same path as you when I reach rank 98 in the future. You'll need to impart your experience to me then." Huo Yuhao was a little helpless as he commented, "You're so competitive." Tang Wutong replied, "I'm not competitive. I just cannot lag behind you." "All right." Huo Yuhao didn't stop her. Given her abilities, she wasn't any weaker than him, especially in terms of her talent. Huo Yuhao could subtly sense that her abilities and potential had become a little unpredictable ever since she had returned as Tang Wutong. When Tang Wutong became a titled Doluo, it was when Huo Yuhao was creating a Class 9 soul tool with Xian Zuan. Huo Yuhao didn't know how she made a breakthrough, but he knew that she owned her own spirit after that. Her 9th soul ring was her spirit. As for cultivating her 2nd soul core, it was still too early. She had to try first before she could determine anything. If Huo Yuhao opposed her now, he was just looking for trouble. Their journey was very peaceful. The Star Luo Empire's aerial surveillance soul tools couldn't possibly detect them. The two of them were close to the Mingdo mountain range by noontime. The Mingdo mountain range was a very important location. Here, there were many more aerial surveillance soul tools. Furthermore, the Star Luo Empire's army had also been redeployed. Even though it was difficult to tell what the redeployment was like, it seemed like there had been major changes. Without a doubt, these changes were made in accordance to the Sun Moon Empire's fighting strategy. When they were still 50 kilometers from the Mingdo mountain range, Huo Yuhao deliberately held onto Tang Wutong and slowed down. They were then discovered by the aerial surveillance soul tools. This was to avoid any unnecessary trouble. After this, both of them drifted in the air and waited. Indeed, the Star Luo Empire reacted very quickly. In just a short period of time, a group of soul masters flew towards them using flying-type soul tools. There were 10 of them. Perhaps it was because the Star Luo Empire had managed to get an upper hand over the Sun Moon Empire when they used such small groups, but they had started to fancy them. This group of soul masters was very friendly. Evidently, they had been waiting near the aerial surveillance soul tools. In addition, Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong came from the mainland. It was more likely that they were friendly instead of hostile. Huo Yuhao retrieved the letter for this mission that Elder Xian had passed to him. He was immediately recognized and led towards the Mingdo mountain range by this group of soul masters. For some reason, Huo Yuhao felt different every time he came to the Mingdo mountain range. He was about to meet the White Tiger Duke again. This time, he was much less hateful than before. However, there was some reluctance on his part to face the White Tiger Duke again. Every time he thought of how the White Tiger Duke had hugged him and flown into the sky, he would have some kind of weird feeling. Even if he was unwilling to admit it, he knew that he was proud to have such a father. Without the White Tiger Duke, the Star Luo Empire's borders wouldn't be in such a state. In addition, the pressure on the Heavenly Soul Empire wouldn't have fallen so quickly either. The White Tiger Duke was indeed a cornerstone figure. Tang Wutong whispered, "You're a little nervous." Huo Yuhao forced a laugh, "No, I'm not." Tang Wutong chuckled and said, "How dare you deny it? Your hands are already full of sweat. Don't worry. I'm by your side." Okay. After hearing her words, Huo Yuhao felt much more relieved. The main peak of the Mingdo mountain range was where the death god Doluo and Di Qian had clashed. Right now, the White Tiger Duke's commander tent was located on this main peak. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were escorted there. Evidently, the mountain had been through some changes. It was very flat now. The edges of it bristled with soul tools, which made it seem as if there were soul formations present. Among them were Zhuge divine crossbow cannons. They were even present in the greatest numbers. Slightly further back were other tents. The White Tiger Duke had chosen this mountain to place his commander tent, because the view was the best from here. The situation in the Sun Moon Empire could be most easily observed from this mountaintop. In terms of surveillance, the Star Luo Empire had indeed put in a lot of hard work. At least in terms of defense, these surveillance Sol tools had helped greatly. On a few occasions, some small-scale penetrations by Sol engineers from the Sun Moon Empire were discovered and dealt with in time. As they landed, Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were directly led into the tent by the group of Sol masters that had received them. Before he even entered, Huo Yuhao unleashed his spiritual detection, as he often did. There were more than 10 people in the tent. Each of their auras was also very dominant and fairly strong. However, none of them noticed Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection. Huo Yuhao held onto Tang Wutong as he walked into the tent. Once he entered, he became the focus of everyone's attention. There was a huge table in the center of the tent. The White Tiger Duke was standing at the edge of the center of the table. When he saw Huo Yuhao, a surprised look flashed across his face. Dai Yueheng and Dai Luoli were both there as well, behind the White Tiger Duke. Dai Yueheng was dressed like a general, while Dai Luoli was dressed as a bodyguard. Huo Yuhao was familiar with many of the people around the table. Among them, the one who caught his attention the most was Dubuzi. He was actually here. It was rumored that he had suffered critical injuries when at the border of the Heavenly Soul Empire, and only barely managed to escape. It seemed like he had recovered from his injuries. Apart from Dubuzi, Princess Wei Na and Princess Jojo were also here. As for the rest, they were all titled Doluo. There were even some transcendent Doluo there. When he saw Huo Yuhao, the White Tiger Duke immediately came up to receive him. He laughed and opened his arms towards him. Yuhao, you are finally here. It's great to see you again. Before Huo Yuhao had time to react, the White Tiger Duke gave him an embrace. Huo Yuhao felt his heart tremble. He subconsciously opened his arms and hugged him back. However, there was a slight throbbing look in his eyes. After the hug, the White Tiger Duke also said hi to Tang Wutong. When he looked at Huo Yuhao again, there was a teasing look on his face. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong had held hands and walked in together earlier. He had clearly seen it. This video will end here.